You know what that sound means? It's another episode of Game for a Movie where we ask, are you game for a movie? My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. It is the first bad movie of 2025. And when I tell you I have found a doozy, I mean I have found a doozy of a film. This is a stoner comedy, in quotes there. Can't wait to show you more about it. But of course, before we do that, we have to start with what we are drinking. What we are drinking tonight is one of my favorite breweries in South Carolina. This is from Untamed Waters Brewing. This is the Seaway Astronaut. It is a double IPA. It is a fantastic beer, and it is one of my favorite places on the face of the planet. I got to bring my son there for the first time just to grab a 4-pack. It's not like I was drinking there all day or anything like that. We grabbed a 4-pack, and my favorite bartender was there. They have excellent trivia there, and the trivia guy was there. They all got to see my son for the first time, and truthfully, it made everybody's day, including mine. So, Untamed Waters in Fort Mill, South Carolina. It is an excellent place with excellent people and excellent beer. I highly recommend it. And this is the Seaway Astronaut, a double IPA. Cheers to you guys. All right, enough about what we are drinking. Let's talk bad movies. So, as I said before, this is a stoner comedy in big quotations on that one. This is a movie that I chose because this week, Flight Risk comes out, which is a movie starring Mark Wahlberg, Topher Grace, and Michelle Dockery. And I've been trying this year to stay a little more relevant on my topics, like make them a little more relatable to what's coming out. And this one is one of the worst ones on Topher Grace's filmography. This is Don Peyote. Don Peyote is a stoner comedy, as I've said before, that is written, directed, and starring Dan Fogler. Dan Fogler, you definitely recognize. He is Kowalski, the human partner in the Fantastic Beasts movie, as well as he was Randy Daytona in Balls of Fury, which is a highly underrated, I would also call it a stoner comedy on that one. That one's definitely a lot of fun. It's the movie about ping pong, and Randy Daytona is played by Dan Fogler. Don Peyote, let's get into a couple details of that before we go into the main details. You can find this film on Tubi, Pluto TV for free, or if you really feel the need, you can rent it on Hoopla through your local library. I don't know why you would use one of your valuable rents on that one, but, you do you. This movie is a 7% critics rating as well as a 29% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so it does fall under the 40-40 of making it a bad movie. And one of the critics ratings, it says from 2014 where this movie was released, it says this is the worst American movie I have seen this year. So we're in for a good time. It is an hour and a half long, and it released on May 16th, 2014. I can't find very much info about its budget or anything like that, but I can tell you right now, it is an indie movie. I can also tell you that it probably didn't make its money back. Who knows? Maybe it did, but I would guess not. Along with Dan Fogler, there is a bunch of people in this movie that you definitely recognize, and they usually they get their 2 minutes of movie time, and then they're gone, and they're out of the film. So I will mention some very big names in this project, and you'll be like, how'd they end up in this? They're in the movie for 2 minutes. They disappear. They're gone for the rest of the film. That's just how it's going to go with this movie. So let me give you a brief synopsis before I read my details of this movie. I'm going to, as always, read you every last detail of what happens in this movie and then tell you my thoughts on it at the end. But the brief synopsis: Don Peyote tells the story of Warren Allman, an unemployed stoner who finally finds a purpose in life after an unpleasant encounter with a homeless man preaching the end is near. Fueled by vivid apocalyptic dreams, Warren becomes obsessed with 2012 doomsday theories and decides to make a documentary on the subject while his fiancée is busy planning their wedding. Yeah, that's a good description of what to expect from this one. It did come out in 2014, but it is dealing with a lot of the 2012 doomsday conspiracy theories. It does also go down the rabbit hole on many other things. There's going to be some real life things that are mentioned in this. Can't wait to tell you all of the details about this movie. So here we go. Don Peyote. Here is everything about it. And before I really start, I just want to let you know that some of this stuff might not make sense. Trust me, it didn't make sense while I was watching it. So I'm going to try to do the best I can to make it make sense. There's a chance that some of it is still going to be confusing, and it's mostly because it's still confusing to me. Trust me. So here we go. I will start by saying there is a narrator that I thought was just in the beginning of the movie to introduce a character. No, he does not go away. He is there the entire length of the movie. So there is a narrator in this film. You just got to get over it. He introduces us to Warren, our main character played by Dan Fogler, who is an unemployed graphic novel artist. He's also Jewish, engaged, and he smokes pot most of the time through fruits. So he makes bongs out of things like apples, pomegranates, grapefruit at one point. Yeah, it's a lot of fruit bongs. The narrator lets us know there is nothing remarkable about him except for his dreams. And we get a first example of that when he wakes up, quotes, from a dream, walks to the window of his 20th floor apartment in this New York building, and he sees two suns setting. And then all of a sudden he sees a huge tidal wave that crashes through his window and knocks him over. Yeah, that is the kind of dreams we're dealing with. And this tidal wave is terrible CGI, absolutely awful. That's why I think this budget is so low on this film. I've said at this point that this looks kind of like a student film project, which is not a bad thing when you are a student film project, but when you are a Hollywood movie that has a lot of big names and everything like that, that's not good. So this definitely looks like a student film project, and I don't mean that in a good way. We get introduced to Karen. Karen is the engaged woman to Warren. She is played by Kelly Hutchinson, who has been in a couple of things. Maybe you'd recognize her from some things, but mostly now she's a writer, including she wrote 22 episodes of Dead to Me, the TV series. So that's kind of where she is right now. A few things about Karen. I think we're not supposed to like her. I think that's what the goal was trying to be, that we weren't going to like her. And truthfully, I find that a little ridiculous. This first thing is definitely a little unreasonable, but after that, everything else is kind of very reasonable that she deals with. I think they're trying to drive home that maybe she's a little more impulsive. I don't know. Maybe that's the idea behind it, but I do not hate this character. I think they try to make it so you do. I don't hate Karen. I think she has a lot of reasonable things that she's trying to do throughout this film. The unreasonable thing that starts at the beginning, though, she wakes Warren up from this dream of the big tidal wave, the big bad CGI tidal wave, by trying to put a baby in her. And that's the thing, is her biological clock is ticking, so she wants to not only get married, but she also wants to have a kid, right away. That's kind of our intro to the character, is that kind of stuff. The other thing, though, that she does is she really wants to help Warren be the best he can be. So she does things like leave Post-it notes around his computer to try to encourage him to express himself, use this creativity he has, and to look for work and that kind of stuff. She really wants to distract him from not smoking all day and not watching conspiracy theory YouTube videos, especially ones about 2012 and the doomsday of 2012. One of these days, Warren is heading to a party, and it just so happens to be raining. He crosses the street of this busy New York street, and there's a homeless guy, a doomsday hobo, as I call him, that has a sign that says, "The end is near." And he accidentally knocks Warren over, and when reaching to help him up, a piece of a water droplet falls off of this homeless guy and lands on Warren's bare skin. And then it does this CGI thing that's kind of like a virus spread, where you see it kind of just spread out kind of thing. And this is where our events start. Basically now Warren is kind of going off the deep end with his conspiracy theories. And this is the reason it all starts. He thinks that he's been infected with something almost. It doesn't help the party he goes to at this place called The Whip, of all places. Warren's friend invites him to this party. His name is Balance. Balance is not at this party. So Warren starts making friends with the people there. They start doing all these drugs like Wolfsbane and other things. He's high off his ass. For some reason, he has a red clown nose at some point, and they kind of are talking about this guy, Pinchbeck. Pinchbeck is an author who has all this information about Doomsday, and especially about 2012's Doomsday. Pinchbeck is actually a real person, and he plays himself in this movie. And Warren leaves this party and starts to go to his YouTube channel and watches all of the things that he's talking about and everything like that. And then he goes to sleep with this still fresh in his mind. So one of the things about this movie is there's dream sequences, and we don't know completely when it's a dream sequence versus real. Some of them are very realistic. Some of them are completely crazy. This one here, I think, is a dream, but I don't know. It feels realistic in nature, like it could be, certainly. But at the same time, the character that meets Warren in this part is called a dream agent and is played by Anne Hathaway. Fun fact about Anne Hathaway in this film, according to the trivia on the IMDb page, Dan Fogler said she lost a bet and had to be in this movie. So she plays the dream agent who knocks on the door and basically says, like, you fucked up, Warren, headbutts him and like beats the shit out of him. Then she realizes she's got the wrong guy, and they're just like chilling after that. And she is a black ops agent who knows all this stuff about the government and like the fact that they're lying to us and what they're keeping from us and everything like that. And it goes to this kind of montage where half of it is like a Charlie Brown parents, and the other half is like certain words. So it'd be like, wah, 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 chemtrails in the air, wah, 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 2012, doomsday, wah, 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 that kind of stuff, where you hear certain words that get us to believe he's learning about all these things through this dream agent that knows because she's a black ops agent. The thing is, Warren is kind of not getting it exactly. So Anne Hathaway puts their heads together, and he kind of through osmosis learns all of this stuff. So now he knows all of this stuff to be true, and he thinks he can do something about especially Doomsday, but all of these things he's now learned about. And one of the things he feels like he can do to help out is he had a text message from Pinchbeck, and so he kind of schedules a time to meet with him. He also has a text from Karen about going dress shopping, which I don't know very many people that do that with their fiance, but I mean, good for you if that's what you want to do. I know that my fiance at that time didn't want to have me there. She wanted to do it with like her girls, hanging out, getting some drinks, wine, that kind of stuff, trying on different dresses, and surprising me at the wedding itself. But maybe we're traditionalists that way. When Warren gets to the dress shop, all of a sudden he starts hearing noises like bird sounds, lion roars, that kind of thing. He's not really focused on the guy that's talking to him, asking him if he's like ready for the wedding. And he goes walking down like the aisle of dresses and calls Balance. Balance is his friend that didn't show up to the party. When Balance answers, Balance is like half naked and he's shaving his legs in the shower. Warren has this idea. He wants to borrow Balance's video camera, and he wants to make a documentary about 2012 and Doomsday. So he wants to tape this interview with Pinchbeck. That's originally how he wants to start it. Then he wants to get more opinions, and kind of he wants all this information so that he knows what to do about Doomsday itself. So he interviews Pinchbeck. It's a great interview. We don't get much of it, but we get a little bit here or there. And now he knows that he's connected somehow to this, and he's going to save the world. Like, he's that guy. He knows now he's been brought into this world because he's going to make a difference and stop Doomsday. One of the people he also meets is Bates. Bates is played by Jay Baruchel. Jay Baruchel was in the Goon movies. He's in She's Out of My League, and the big thing that a lot of people would know him from is he voices Hiccup in the How to Train Your Dragon movies. Jay Baruchel is the drug dealer of Balance, and he also knows a lot about this 2012 stuff. And so they interview him next. He's a perfect candidate. Let's interview him. Let's get as many interviews as we can get. And he kind of turns them on the way of like the rich versus the poor. Like the poor has all of this stuff happen to them because the rich decide it and like hide this information from them. Warren has to go to, I call it premarital counseling. I don't know what to really call it, but he has to go to premarital counseling with Karen. So he sends Balance in his place to go to the Occupy Wall Street movement. So Balance is just there, like taking video of everything, talking to the people there. It's going to go in this documentary. Warren, this premarital counseling. So we went through this when we were getting married. I truthfully think it's something that everybody should kind of do. At the very least, it's a time where the officiant gets to know you guys a little better, like to make the actual ceremony about you and have this background and everything like that. At the very least, or that's at the very least. At the most, one of the things that I thought was very cool about it is Claire and I are very open, like about conversations, everything like that. We've always been very open with each other. There's no topic off limits. But this got us thinking about certain things that we didn't plan for and like how we would kind of like handle it together. And like I said, we're very open and everything like that, but hearing each other out and coming up with these solutions together, it was very eye-opening. Because we didn't live in Cincinnati and our officiant was in Cincinnati, we only did one of these sessions. She really wanted us to do 3, just didn't work out. I would have gladly done all 3 because, like I said, I think this is a great thing. That's kind of what the idea is. So the co-officiants are talking with Warren and Karen and kind of getting their sides of how they would handle certain things. It's become very obvious that Warren is kind of like checked out. And so they ask him what he's thinking and what's got him all distracted. And he brings up all these conspiracy theories and like all these reasons why he thinks he's going to save the world and he's going to make a difference. And Karen's kind of like trying to like downplay that and get them focused on their wedding again. But Warren doesn't want to hear this. He feels like he's not being listened to, when truthfully he probably isn't doing the listening, if you ask me. But he feels like he's not being listened to. And Karen is just trying to get them to have this like great wedding. It's not like she's not listening to him. She actually encouraged him originally with the creative process to do this documentary, to like put his talents into something. So with him not feeling listened to and with all of these things that he's putting on himself, he's starting to not feel well. And he uses a ton of money to go to a bunch of different doctors and basically find out what's wrong with him. There's also at this point a supercut of him talking to experts about the occult, cults, 2012, all the conspiracy theories, that kind of thing. And one of the things that stands out is this idea of Homo Sanctus. Homo Sanctus is a man evolving into a spirit man or a holy man that's going to lead us, basically. And so this leads to a scene where Warren is in the bathroom and he's talking to the mirror going, basically he's saying to himself, like, are you Homo Sanctus? Like, are you this spirit warrior? And Karen is outside the bathroom kind of listening in. And then he takes her lipstick and like puts these markings on his face. And it's just kind of like, I am Homo Sanctus. I am a spirit warrior, you know? And Karen's kind of, okay, what's going on? You know, like what's happening? And Warren admits that he has been having health issues and is kind of getting like bad advice from certain things, but he's found this different path kind of thing. He also admits that he spent all of their honeymoon money to go to all these doctors. And she handles it a lot better than I probably would have. She's just kind of like, okay, you need to talk to somebody again. You need to get psychiatric help. And so she convinces him to go to the therapist, Dr. Fieldman. Dr. Fieldman is played by Wallace Shawn. Wallace Shawn been in a ton of shit. You definitely recognize him from one role and one role only. You probably have seen him in other things, but definitely one role and one role only. In The Princess Bride, he is the inconceivable guy. So this is the guy that Warren goes to talk to again. He explains to the doctor that the vivid dreams are back and that he is dealing with this idea of greater purpose. Like he has this purpose now in his life, which Dr. Fieldman is kind of like, okay, you have these delusions of grandeur again. We were dealing with this last time. But Warren knows that he is bigger than this. Like, he has this purpose that is bigger than this idea of grandeur and everything. So he doesn't need this. He walks out. And he also has it in his mind now that he is going to be lied to. He's going to be hurt by all these people that want to stand in the way of him becoming Homo Sanctus. So he decides to take some self-defense lessons. He also gets a gun from Dean Winters. Dean Winters is the name of the actor. Dean Winters is the Vulture in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Nine-Nine. And he's also the Mayhem guy from Allstate. So you definitely know him as well. He's there for all of 5 seconds. Like I said, all of these characters, Anne Hathaway, Jay Baruchel, Wallace Shawn, Dean Winters, they're all in this scenes for like 2 minutes and then they're gone again. So you get all these big names, but then they just kind of are gone. So now he has a gun and he also kind of knows self-defense. Kind of. You'll see that it doesn't really work. And so after accumulating all this information, he's like talking with himself, and this is all we get from the narrator. Because again, this is narrator's, he's just making sure that you get everything explained to you. Like it's fed to you on a spoon, yet it's still the most confusing movie by far. Basically, he realizes after all this information, he needs Karen with him. And he wants to like reconnect with her and get to the point of the wedding and everything like that. So he buys her some flowers. He goes home. He's going to like take her out on this date. He's going to take her for a night on the town. And when he gets home, there's a party happening in his house. And not just a party, but an orgy. Like half naked people everywhere. Including when he gets to the bedroom, Karen is basically, to put it in the best way I can, having a train run on her pretty much. And like, you don't see anything or anything like that. It's just like 3 or 4 guys that are surrounding her. The idea is that she was kind of like living life to the fullest because basically he said the world was ending anyway. So she was just kind of like living life. She's seizing the day because that's what Warren told her to do. She's seizing the day because that's what Warren told her to do. And so now he's like heartbroken and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He is beside himself. So he pulls out the gun and shoots one of the guys right in the chest. And that guy, gone, done. And then he grabs the gun and puts it in his mouth and is just like, I'm not going to live on this planet anymore if you're cheating on me, that kind of thing, and pulls the trigger. There we go. End of movie. Warren's killed himself, right? So I guess our Homo Sanctus never happens. That's it. That's the end of the movie. But it's not, of course. Turns out it was all a dream, which we didn't know in the moment. Because, again, they don't clarify when it's dreams or real or whatever. And like this one, yes, of course, it feels a little off. It feels a little weird, especially because it goes against everything Karen was doing this entire process in the movie so far. So it does feel off. And she comes out of the shower wearing a robe, her hair's still wet. Like Warren is still seeing all these people in this party, but now she's in a robe with her hair wet, like no makeup on, kind of like, Worry? What's going on? What's happening? And he like pulls the gun out of his mouth and it's just his fingers. And now he knows he's kind of like starting to go crazy. So he starts laughing. And I mean sinister laughing, like just crazy laughing. And it's like laughing, guttural noises, and his glasses crack. And so he like takes his glasses off, hands them to Karen, and then he passes out. I think it's very important to mention at this point, this is where I stopped for the first time. So I split this into 2 days, and this was really right about halfway anyway. But it's just going to make it crazier when I start it back up. Because after he passed out, he now wakes up and he's underwater again. Like he's floating and he's underwater. And he gets out of the water and he's over by the bridge. And all of a sudden this musical number starts up and he's like dancing and singing with random people off the streets. Like it's just Okay, cool. We're just dancing and singing now. And then it transitions into the desert. And he's all alone in the desert. And like, this is a very fake desert. Like, it's obvious green screen, that kind of stuff. And there's two versions of him, one wearing like an Indian headdress, and then another one. And like, they're talk to him, and they're just like, when I flop around, it's like I'm on peyote. And I'm just like, there's your roll credits right there. But he's being chased by these two versions of himself in this drug induced trip. And I said this is kind of like Vision Quest, so that he can figure it out and find out that he's the one. It's not a Vision Quest, at least not at this point, because he ends up in a homeless encampment. And not just any homeless encampment. There's a bunch of homeless people, but there is our doomsday hobo. And our doomsday hobo starts going like, oh, it's Warren the One. He has the mark. All hail Homo Sanctus. And like all of them start going like, all hail Homo Sanctus. All hail Homo Sanctus. And they get to him and they reach their fingers like down his throat and they pull out a coin. And we don't know what this coin is. It's just a coin. And they make him put it into this fortune teller machine, like one of those ones that's featured in the movie Big. So like he puts it in the machine and this guy spins around, and it's a real guy. It's not like the fortune teller. And he tells him that he needs to go visit this guy. And I can't remember what the guy's name is, but they need him to go visit this guy. So they all push him through like this like tent door. And there's a guy with this deep voice and some scantily clad women. And like these women are like touching Warren, feeling him up, while deep voice guy is talking to him. And he's talking about old time religion like Ares, Kali, Shiva. And he mentions how if Warren wants to be Homo Sanctus, he has to go to Punta Maldonado to meet the maestro and take ayahuasca to be complete. So that's the plan. He needs to go to Punta Maldonado to meet the maestro, take ayahuasca, and he will be Homo Sanctus. That is the idea behind this deep voice guy talking to him. And finally, the drug trip ends. And it kind of zooms out. Warren is like staring blankly. He's got a Band-Aid under his eye. He's holding two fingers up in the air that have like braces on them. We don't know what happened to him, like how he got hurt, but he is in a psych ward. And he's being seen by a doctor who's like talking to him. And basically the doctor's like, I want to see you more. And then the doctor gets sat down in a wheelchair because he's a patient. And he gets rolled away. And on the other side of the door of the psych ward is Karen, who's observing him and like saying, it's just gotten so much worse, doctor. Like, I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know what's happened to my worry. That kind of thing. And then Warren and Karen are talking in another room at a table. They're talking together. And basically, Karen announces the wedding's off and gives him back the ring. And at first, he's like super pissed, He can't believe this because now he knows what he needs to do. He needs to go to Punta Maldonado, talk to the maestro, do ayahuasca, and become Homo Sanctus. And then he just starts talking about peace and that he's going to save everyone from 12/21/2012. And like as she's like getting up to leave, he smiles at her and is just like, don't say I didn't warn you. God damn it. That was so bad. Like, that's just such a bad joke. And that's the kind of humor they were including in this comedy. Yeah, it's bad. So he's kind of like distraught about everything, but he knows that like once he becomes Homo Sanctus, he can go back and save her. So now he's like in his room. He's on some kind of drug to help him sleep and relax and that kind of stuff. But he also tries to escape. Tonight's the night he's going to escape. So he's like slow walking down the hallway. He's falling. And he sees that somebody is in a room by themselves. And he's like looking for help to get out. And he thinks this person is going to help him. This person is smoking in a gas mask in the medical ward. And it happens to be Speed, his buddy, that he used to sell to. Speed is played by Speed Levitch. I don't know him from a lot of things, but I do know him from one thing. I used to watch this show religiously. It was called Stroker and Hoop, and he is the voice of Hoop on that show. It's an animated show. It was a cop thing, detective thing. It was hysterical. It's ridiculous. It was on Adult Swim. I was young. I still enjoy it, but yeah, it's a lot. So he is the voice of Hoop on that. That's how I would know him. And basically, Speed hooks him up with some weed, and they get blazed. He also admits that it is past the 2012 Doomsday. So we've been, this entire movie, been following this guy who thinks he's going to save everybody from this Doomsday, and it's already past this date. So I don't know what is going to happen now, because his documentary never happened. It's past the date he was going to save everybody. But Speed helps him, gives him a key so that he can escape. And as he is like escaping through this fire escape, Balance is there to help him escape as well. And it just so happens he's there. So as they're going to Balance's car, there's like sirens, there's people showing up, like guards and everything. And Balance is going to take care of them because Warren now sees the camera and is like, oh yeah, you think this is funny? Yeah, this isn't funny. This is real life. This is really what I'm going through. And he's like talking directly to the audience. And it is the strangest thing because it just all of a sudden out of nowhere has this fourth wall break. And it's not just any fourth wall break, because then we see Glavin Culpepper. Glavin Culpepper is played by Topher Grace. Hello, Topher. We've been waiting for you. He is Dan Fogler's agent. And basically, he's just talking about the fact that he doesn't understand what's happening in this movie. He's like watching the movie, and he's like, Dan wanted to do this indie shit, and he wrote it himself and is directing, so there's no one to blame but himself. So, and that's Topher Grace's part pretty much. And he like goes on this rant about it's hard to be his agent, but you know, he has no one to blame but himself. So, yeah. Then we go back to the actual action of the movie. Warren is told by Balance that he's been in the psych ward for 3 months, and he is not okay because it's been 3 months. He had no clue. He thinks it's been days at most. So they hop in a cab, and Balance happens to bring his camera and his editing stuff, and he shows the documentary that he has edited. And he's like, this is great. Like, this is really good, but we need something big to close it out. Something big to close out this documentary. And Warren goes, perfect, I've got it. We need to go to Punta Maldonado because I need to meet this guy named the Maestro. And all of a sudden, Warren is in a hospital gown in a different cab. There's no Balance. And the cab driver has woken him up to tell him he's at Point Maldonado. Warren's in this hospital gown. He has no money. He has no anything. He's wondering where his friend is. He's confused again. And so he gets into a fight with the cabbie, and the cabbie knocks him the fuck out. Just like punches him, knocks him the fuck out. So he wakes up, and he finds this close restaurant, and he's going to ask where to find the Maestro or where to find a phone or whatever. But everybody there is speaking Italian, and he doesn't understand any of it. And then there's this news report in English, mind you. It's not even in Italian. It's in English at this restaurant about the fact that they're looking for Warren because he escaped from the hospital. And like the chef comes out of the kitchen and he has like a knife in his hand, and he's just like yelling at him to get out of there. And it scares Warren off. However, it's played for laughs because it's one of those jokes where this guy understood he's looking for a phone. He just so happened to be washing this knife, and he has it in his hands, and he's telling Warren that it's outside around the corner. So outside around the corner, outside around the corner, like he's yelling at him, and it freaks Warren out. Well, Warren goes, he steals some clothes from a person. He tries to call Karen, but nothing happens. He breaks down crying. He's alone. He's at his lowest point. You know, he thought he was just going to meet the Maestro. He was going to take the ayahuasca, and he was going to be Homo Sanctus. So he starts walking down these train tracks and he finds a ticket office. And he's really excited because now he knows he can get a ticket. He can end up back in New York and he can just go back with his life. I think this is the point. They don't ever address this, but I think this is the point where he's kind of like, okay, I'm not being the maestro. I'm not having this happen. I'm going to get back to Karen and I'm going to live my life. And so he asks when the next train goes to New York. And the conductor's just like, you do realize this is a museum train. Like, this goes nowhere. What you could do is you can go over the mountains and go to Phoenicia to get a bus over the mountain. And so Warren sets off to go over the mountain. Along his route, he sees this camp. He thinks there's somebody there that can help him because he's hungry. He's starting to lose it. Nobody's there. There's no food there. There's nothing. It's just this campsite that was left. And so he sits against a tree and somebody starts yelling at him that he shouldn't be on the ground. He shouldn't be there. He should get up the tree because bears could come or whatever. And the two people hop down from the tree because he's not moving. And these two people are Adam and Eve. They are two hippies, for lack of a better term. They're free spirits. They go where they want to. They're not held back by anything. So they're just kind of, they do what they want. They find what they want when they need it. Everything like that. Eve is played by Elizabeth Harnois. It's either Harnois or Harnois. It's French. I don't know. I think it's Harnois. Elizabeth Harnois. She's been in a couple things here or there. A lot of Christmas movies lately. But she was in CSI for 85 episodes as Lab Tech Morgan Brody. That's probably the one thing you'd recognize her from. And then Adam is played by Josh Duhamel. Why Josh Duhamel? I have no clue, but he's there. And so they're saying to Warren they can help him. They're going to get him some food, and then they'll get him across the mountain to Phoenicia. Basically, they're trying to figure out what to get for food, and Adam says to Eve, I'm feeling Italian. So they go and they find a dumpster, and they start rummaging through it, and they find some good stuff. And Warren's like, no, I'm not eating that. I'm not eating from the dumpster. And he says to them, I guess beggars can be choosers. Yeah, that's the jokes, though. That's what we got here. So they're walking back after eating, and they end up in this little, like, tiny train car. It's kind of their setup. It's kind of where they hang out when it's, like, raining or whatever. So Adam and Eve on one side, Warren on the other. And Eve gives Warren a drink. It's a tea drink. And as it turns out, the tea is the ayahuasca. But they don't know the maestro. They have no clue who the maestro is. So once again, he starts laughing maniacally because, now he's high on ayahuasca. And he also was like caught off guard in the fact that they didn't give him a warning. It was ayahuasca. But they're like, he's cool. It's fine. So they tell him what their plan is. They want to dump 100 gallons of ayahuasca into the water supply. And basically everybody will have this like high moment and they'll realize that the free spirit life is the life you should choose and that kind of stuff. Warren hears none of this because, again, he is high off his ass. So when he wakes up, again, this is another dream I'm thinking. I would assume so because when you hear what's happening, you'll think it is too. He wakes up and he starts seeing like every dimension. And there's this goddess there. And the goddess has been waiting for him and says, finally, you are awake, Don Peyote. And there's the roll credits. So she calls him Don Peyote. He has now gone to this next level in his mind. And then he really wakes up and he's on a train track and his friends are nowhere to be seen. But he has seemingly transformed into Don Peyote. So he goes to a buffet to eat, and it just so happens that also there is Deep Voice Guy. And Deep Voice Guy, he explains to our friend Don Peyote, explains to him that he has not met the maestro, but he did take the ayahuasca, and so he has completed his transformation, right? while this is happening, all of a sudden this like creepy bunny suit guy is like running around, and Warren goes and chases after him. And in the bunny suit, when he finally catches it, it's Balance. Balance has been running from something. He says, I've been being chased by the CIA, the FBI, KFC. Everybody's after me, man. And so Balance is trying to escape and run away, but he gives Warren a metal hat to protect his thoughts. And he also gives him 500 copies of the documentary. And then he leaves. That's it. Balance is gone for the rest of the movie, by the way. That's it. So now it's up to Warren. So Warren is like kind of in this enlightened phase. You know, he thinks he's now Don Peyote. He thinks he's Homo Sanctus. And so there's 4 guys in the restaurant, and he kind of is like talking with them about saving them from doomsday. And basically one of the guys is like mad at him. He's like getting into a fight with him. And Warren yells at him just like, I am Don Peyote. And the guy's just like, I don't fucking care who you are. Punches him, knocks him out. This ends the cycle of violence and self-hatred, according to the narrator. So he was at absolute rock bottom, but now there's no more doubts. He no longer has a self-hatred. He no longer wants to commit violence. He is Don Peyote now. And so as he's bleeding, he goes to the bathroom and he covers himself in the blood with like these markings like he did with the lipstick earlier. And all that is left is Don Peyote. So now he walks around the world. He's got this peaceful message. He's got a sign saying the end is near, let me save you kind of thing. He performed like several miracles while he was doing this, including one where he like makes a coin appear from behind this girl's ear, and then another one, and then another one, and it's not stopping. And now he's freaking out because he didn't mean to do this. So he disappears for 7 years. Yes, you heard me correct. He just disappears for 7 years because he kept making coins appear from behind this girl's ear. But he has a full beard, and he carries the sign of peace, and he passes out his DVDs, and he ends up at a cafe. And at this cafe is Karen with this new man and a new son named Grady. And they happen to be talking about Grady and how Grady is like this free-spirited kind of kid, and he's like in tune with the flowers and everything like that. And Grady gives Warren a flower. And Warren, because he also wants to give Grady a gift, gives Karen's ring back to him and to give to Karen. They don't recognize him. Karen doesn't recognize him at all because now he's got a beard, I guess. And the new guy in her life kind of also lets it slip that Grady's kind of special, and, you know, they know what his genes are. So it's very much insinuated that Grady is Warren's kid. And so Warren smiles and walks away. And then another dance number with random people off the street starts up. And we don't know, again, is this a dream? Is this real? Is the ayahuasca in the water supply? We don't know. But that's how the movie ends. And it goes to the credits. And not long into the credits, we get Topher Grace's agent, Glavin Culpepper, back. And basically, he's just talking about the fact that Dan wants to do these indie movies, but like, I can get him a job on Battleship 2, and I can get him all these public ones and everything like that. And then he admits when he calls Dan, love the movie. And then it rolls the rest of the credits. And that's Don Peyote. What the actual fuck was this movie? This is the strangest movie I've ever seen. And I watched it all because of Topher Grace, and he was a total of maybe 3 minutes in this movie. Dan Fogler is a good actor. This is the strangest thing I think I've ever seen. And it's just such a weird movie, and he's exactly right. Nobody to blame but himself. He wrote it, he directed, he starred in it. So, like, there's nobody to blame but him. So, I don't know. It's the strangest thing. And it goes to my point of this episode about, like, people directing themselves. Sometimes it goes so well and sometimes it goes so wrong. truthfully, I think this went okay in the fact that Dan acted the shit out of this, but he acted the shit out of the strangest movie. So like nobody, I don't know. I think he actually directed himself pretty well. Because he wrote it, because he starred in it, he also like went in full send on this. And that's probably one of the reasons why I say he nailed like the acting part of it. I don't get it. I don't follow it. I think he did well for this writing, but I'll say that this movie was trash in the fact that the writing makes no goddamn sense. It was just a bunch of stuff happening, and all of a sudden it was just, oh, it's 3 months later, and you had no clue you were in a psych ward. Oh, you ended up in another cab, and now you're at Punta Maldonado, which apparently is in Italy, but maybe it's not. And you can take a train or a bus to get back to New York. I don't know where the fuck you are. In fact, it felt originally, because of the driver of the cab, like it might be in like Jamaica or something like that. But no, it apparently is close enough that you could get a bus or a train to New York again. It's the strangest thing. I don't know. This movie, at the end of the day, I come back to it going, why the fuck was this made? Like, why the hell? What story is it trying to tell? Because there is none. There really is none. There's no story that makes sense with this. It's not trying to teach you anything. Originally, when they were going with the 2012 Doomsday thing, okay, great. That's fine. I mean, it's a strange way to get there, and maybe somehow, some way he saves them all at the end. That's what I was thinking. But then halfway through the movie, he finds out in the psych ward that it's already past the Doomsday date. Then why did we focus on that for the first half of the movie? Why was that such a big deal, the 2012 Doomsday shit? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. So it's like they had 16 different ideas and they just went for all of them. Like they didn't try to narrow it down or make it like this coherent plot. They just said, okay, let's throw it all at the wall and see what sticks, but everything's stuck, and so we're going to make sure we hit every last bit of it. And so at the end of this movie, I'm sitting there feeling like the Charlie Day meme from Always Sunny, where he's like pointing at the board saying, ah, that kind of stuff. Like I feel that's how I felt at the end of this movie. I was completely sober and I felt high. Like it does not make sense. And it definitely Dan was high when he made this movie, when he wrote this movie. It was crazy. It's insane. I guess I got to give a rating to this shit. It's low. It's very low on my list. And so I feel like I'm going to give it something that a lot of movies have had, but I want it to be different somehow. Like I feel like I've given a lot of movies 0.25. This one is on the lower end of the 0.25 as versus something else that was on the higher end of 0.25. Like they both have the same rating, but this one's definitely lower. Does that make sense somehow? I don't know if it does. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me, but neither did this movie. So, there you go. I'm going to say 0.25 out of 5 ayahuasca gallons in the water supply. I don't know. That makes sense. Sure. All of these celebrities that were in it, I don't understand what was in it for them. It's not even like you got a paycheck out of it, I don't think, or at least not a good one probably, because this movie definitely didn't make any money. So it doesn't make sense to me why you'd even be in this. The only one that makes sense to me is that Anne Hathaway lost a bet and had to be in it. Yeah, that follows. That tracks. I totally see how you got there. And truthfully, of the characters, her and probably Josh Duhamel and Elizabeth Harnoy, they probably had the best characters out of them all. So if you had to be in, I guess it's fine to be those characters because you get 3 minutes of screen time. It's like maybe 1 day of filming, not even. So, those are probably the easiest characters where it's like, cool, just show up, be there, do your part, and you're done. Works for me. So even though Anne Hathaway was all of 3 minutes and lost a bet to have to be in it, I'm guessing she was okay with it because it literally was a day and she probably got paid for it. Yeah, this is a very strange movie. Very, very strange movie. It's an interesting start to 2025. If this is how it's going to go, we're due for a weird year. I've planned out the entire year. This is the first, obviously, of the bad movies. Next one is going to be a bad romantic comedy. I'm going to give you that a heads up now. So if you're playing along on our podcast guessing game, yeah, you already know that it's going to start with the romantic comedy. I can tell you it's one of the worst ones. If you go to Rotten Tomatoes and look the worst romantic comedies of all time, there's a list of 30 movies. I can give you it's one of those. So yeah, I'm giving you a heads up now. So if you're listening to the episode and you got to here, congratulations, you are already a step ahead for getting a shout out in the next episode. Very strange start to the year. That's all I can say about this one. Dan Fogler, you deserve better, but you also did this to yourself. All the people in this, majority of these actors are better than they deserved in this movie. Yeah, that's a film. That's a film that happened, and I don't know where it falls on my list of the worst movies, but I definitely say it's bottom five. Like I think this is bottom five worst movies I have seen. I don't know if I can give it number one now that I've actually sat and digested it a little bit. I know some people I've told, yeah, this might be the worst one. Now that I've sat and digested it a little bit and more specifically thought about when it was a dream versus when it wasn't a dream, I feel a little better about it. It's still not good, but I feel a little better about it. So yeah, that's Don Peyote. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Game for a Movie podcast where we ask, are you game for a movie? I've been your host, Mike, with Don Peyote, and I will see you next time for a bad romantic comedy. See you then.